Welcome to the Talking HealthTech podcast. My name is Peter Birch. Today on the show, we're wrapping up episode 3 of a mini-series we're doing with NZTE, which we've titled Exporting Innovation, NZ HealthTech. And for that, I'm very lucky to be joined by one and only Rob Milsom. Hello, Rob, once again.
Hiya, Pete. Great to be back with you again, mate.
Yes, getting great feedback on episode 1 and 2 of this mini-series and showcasing innovation out of New Zealand. And we've heard from 8 different organizations across those previous 2 episodes. And we've got another 4 in this one today. And each of those 3 episodes in this mini-series, we're focusing on a particular theme. And in this one, it's more about the bits and pieces, the wearables, the medtech, and the artificial intelligence, and piecing all those bits together. So I'd love for you to be able to introduce to us who we've got today.
Thanks very much, Pete. Yeah, I'm really excited about this one. We're looking to the future with AI and wearable diagnostics. And first up, talking about that, we've got the 2 Matts. So Matt Russell and Matt Boyles from Aranz Medical, and they're going to be explaining how Silhouette, their product Silhouette, is transforming wound care and with imaging and data that helps clinicians and patients alike. Following on from that, we're going to have Will Hewitt from HeartLab, who's going to talk about AI-assisted cardiac diagnostics and how collaboration is the key to scaling responsibly. Following on from Will, we're going to have Greg O'Grady from Alimetry. He's going to bring a surgeon founder's perspective on commercializing wearable diagnostics for gut disorders, from research all the way through to FDA approval. And then finally, last but not least, we've got Abby Moore from Chiptech, and Abby is going to share how personal emergency response systems can keep people safe and independent at home and save the system money in the long term, which is something very important to all healthcare systems around the world.
Something I noticed in these discussions as well, Rob, is something that was consistent throughout all of the discussions was the global impact that a lot of these New Zealand organisations have, which surprised me. It probably doesn't surprise you as much in your role at NZTE, but it's so great to see such great innovation happening locally within New Zealand that's really making an impact across the world.
Yeah, I mean, we our mantra at New Zealand Trade and Enterprise is that we believe New Zealand tech is good for the world, so we want to help export that, and health tech is especially doing good for the world. So we're very proud of these companies, and I'm specifically very proud to work with them. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you want to catch all the previous episodes that we've done in this mini-series and also more information about NZTE as THT Plus company partners, there'll be a listing on our website and links through to more resources. And my guess is that next year as well, Rob, the presence at DHF, Digital Health Festival, is going to be on par with 2025, would you say? Or even
We always try and lift the bar, mate. Yeah, so we'll be there. It'll be year 4 for us next year at Digital Health Fest. So we look forward to seeing everyone there.
Until then, here is episode 3 in the mini-series in collaboration with NZTE. Collaboration starts with a conversation, Team HealthTech. Let's make it happen.
So my name is Matt Russell. I am the VP of Sales for Aranz Medical, which means I have responsibility for our global sales across all our jurisdictions that we sell into. I'll come back. I'll let Matt introduce himself, and then I'll come back and talk a wee bit about our company, our background, and then from there. So over to Matt.
Yes, so I'm Matt as well. So we have 2 Matts in our sales team. It's a very strict hiring criteria.
It makes it hard if you're in that startup vibe where it's only first name at email.com, but you probably have to incorporate last names. Anyway, you're probably well familiar with forwarding emails to each other. Anyway, let's move on.
Exactly. But yeah, so I'm a sales representative here at Aranz Medical, and I service our New Zealand, Australia, and Singapore markets.
Got it. And Matt, tell us a bit more about Aranz.
Well, actually, I can say that everybody in the sales team is called Matt, so that makes it quite easy. Well, you talk about a startup. So we're 20 years old now, so we're sort of very far from a startup. So we've been 20 years providing innovation around the area of 3-dimensional imaging and scanning. So we're a Christchurch-based company. We're a privately held company. So the guys who started it up are still the shareholders, and they're actively involved in the company to this day. we started off in the area of three-dimensional imaging and scanning, really in the film industry, where our products were used to support digital animation for, in particular, for the Lord of the Rings programs. And so the platform was sold to all the major studios, and we felt that, the world was our oyster, but once you've sold to the major studios, then, that was it. So we sort of migrated into the world of health, and our next big area was in the world of prosthetics. So that was for folks who are unfortunate enough to have an amputation, fast scan as the earlier product was called, was used to scan the amputation stump and then build a bespoke prosthesis that would fit around for the amputee. And at one stage, we had about 35% market share in the US for that product, and it was a very innovative product at the time. And then, I guess about 15 odd years ago, we were approached by one of the leading teaching hospitals in the US, Wakefield Hospital, to take our technology into the world of wound care, which we were really unaware of. We didn't understand it. We didn't know about it. And the more research we did, we could not believe how archaic it was. People measuring chronic wounds with physical pieces of paper and measuring the depth of the wound by poking a stick into the wound and seeing how deep it was. So we certainly saw that our platform could provide a lot of innovation into that. So we really took the three-dimensional scanning platform and then built a bespoke idea or platform into measuring, imaging, and documenting wounds. And so we've been in that space now for at least 15 years. And we're up to our fourth version, so we're constantly developing and innovating and bringing new platforms and ideas to the market.
Very cool. I'd love to understand the technology a little bit real quickly too, because 3D imaging and scanning, my mind goes to more focus on the physical device, like the camera, for want of a better term, to be able to capture those images. But I guess there's a lot of software and technology under the hood to incorporate as well. So is it both the hardware and software that's super important in this?
Sure. So this platform here is called Silhouette Star. This is a laser-based platform. So in the middle here, we have a digital camera surrounded by a series of lasers for the imaging component. And we effectively take an image and use the lasers to generate a three-dimensional model of the wound using mathematical formula to generate which enables us to then calculate area depth and volume. But really, while this is the visible bit, really the brains of the thing is in the software, and we're continually developing and bringing new techniques with machine learning and AI, things like that, into helping us make the life of our users easier and quicker. And we're also now using extensively smartphones, so iPhones, iPads, Android devices, so that we can deploy the same type of technology into what we would call commodity hardware. So that makes the deployment of it a lot quicker and a lot easier.
Interesting. I'd love to understand, perhaps at a local level first in New Zealand, who the types of customers are these days, because you gave a good example of where it kind of originated from, but who's utilizing the products and services now?
Yeah, so specifically in New Zealand, locally, for us, our biggest users would be what was formerly known, I suppose, as the district health boards, but now Health New Zealand. So we have quite a large system operating out of the central system for Health New Zealand, and they use the mobile aspect of our Silhouette imaging to perform their wound care. And so they have 150 nurse users using Silhouette, and they perform that across the community in that Wellington, Lower Hutt, Kapiti region.
Yeah, and what about in other parts of the world? Is it similar in terms of the uptake of the product, or how does it differentiate?
Well, the product itself is the same. We only have one version of Silhouette. We have Silhouette running in about 50 countries throughout the world. So we're an export company. 99% of our revenue is export driven. Our biggest market is the US, which accounts for about 70% of our market. And the biggest client we have there is the Department of Veterans Affairs, which is the hospital network that is federally funded supporting the military. And they have over 700 of these devices out running in their telewound platform. So they've got a pan-America deployment. And our big work that we're doing there is in mobile nursing as well. So really, there's a little bit along the lines of what Matt talked about, that that's the project here in New Zealand that Kapiti Coast has really led the world on, how they're doing it. So it's a very strong program we have.
I'm interested to hear from you what innovation looks like in this space, because obviously, it sounds like there's good use of technology to be able to give, take us away from the paper measuring tapes and the more archaic methods of wound management into what you do today. But I'm going to hazard a guess that, at the rate of pace of technology and how innovation changes, and also how clinician expectations evolve as well. How are you seeing the ball playing for how this space is moving in the next 12, 6, 24 months?
There's a surprising number of organizations who still do manual-based measurements. So the transition for them from manual measurements into the use of technology really is about making the system easy, accurate, and repeatable to use. So when you've got, in particular, nursing folk or even vascular surgeons, podiatrists, they're already busy. So if you layer a new technology that makes their job take longer, then it's not going to fly. You have to be able to bring systems into the workplace that are easy to use, intuitive to use. We do all our training remotely. We very seldom go on site now, so they have to be able to be quickly deployed, rolled out, and that's really the big thing, that all our work is going around the idea of making the system easier, quicker, and more efficient to use. So it's actually a relatively basic premise, really. It's not so much on the smarts of truly innovation, but it's on the smarts of making Silhouette available, as I said, over existing technology. So a lot of them have iPads and iPhones and Android platforms that we need to quickly and easily deploy on and make the system quick and easy to use.
Interesting. There wouldn't be, like when I think of an organization who has 70% of their business or whatever you said out of the US, being based in New Zealand wouldn't be the first place that I would have thought that you would be, joining me from. Tell me about the global reach of an organization based out of New Zealand and how you approach that. Because I imagine you're quite familiar with getting up at weird and wonderful hours, and and the time zones are irrelevant, right?
Well, today for me started with several calls from our US clients, and today we'll finish with calls to our Singapore distributor. So, that's the world in which we live. So we have a US subsidiary company, so we employ project people, service people, and our support team is based out of the US. We also have support people in the UK. We have a distributor in the US, a big distributor who takes us into the Department of Veterans Affairs. We have a distributor in the UK, distributor in Singapore. Really, the only jurisdiction where we actively sell direct is here in Australia, New Zealand, and Singapore, which is where Matt's working.
My name's Abby Moore. I'm the CEO here at Chiptech, and we design and manufacture telecare devices or personal emergency response systems for primarily the elderly, to keep them connected and safe and supported at home. So it's actually my family business. I've been here coming up 20 years. My dad founded the company, and it is just a fantastic space to work in because you are providing a lifeline of support for people in their time of need. And it's got a bit of innovation and technology, lots of really good care factor and that rewarding side of it in terms of helping people. So, a business I'm super passionate about and, day to day really find quite rewarding to be doing. Yeah.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about that because, thinking about family-run business originating out of New Zealand in a challenging sector around aged care. We've got the growing population. We need to do more with less, and there's wider social issues as well that need to be addressed. Tell me about that journey.
Yeah, so I suppose it would be an understatement to say we're growing. It's a very challenging space to be in at the moment because there is a lot of need and a lot of demand, and that's great and a real opportunity for us. But we want to make sure that we can deliver on that too. So, in terms of our growth and what's happened over time, we've come from a small family business and we've grown into quite a significant organisation here in New Zealand. We supply in Australia and into the UK and are pushing further into Europe. So, quite a bit of need for our products globally, which is exciting. But in terms of ageing populations and the drivers behind that, obviously there's less people to look after our ageing population. There's been a real focus on longevity for quite some time. So people are living longer, needing more support at home during that period of time. And having technology that can be wrapped around a person to cater for some of that is becoming increasingly important. There's lots of options that are available out there, lots of technology that can be used in different ways to make a home safer, to make it smarter and easier for a person to navigate. But it's really important to get the right set of technology in there that's really user-friendly, meets the safety requirements and standards that should be in place, and delivers on what it's intended to do, which is, to keep that person connected to their wider community, to keep them safe during times when things can go wrong, to provide a bit of preventative information coming out of it as well, to give them an understanding of if things change over time, they might need a bit of a reassessment on what's happening. So there's a real challenge there to wrap some really good technology around an individual, and along with all the services that integrate with that, to make sure that people are, comfortable in their old age at home and that they're able to age in place with dignity and have that independence. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think about technology in the aged care sector. You alluded to a couple of use cases just in your kind of scene setter there, and it's one might think, looking at an older demographic, and it's not one that typically you'd want to just inject a load of innovative, untested technology just because it's kind of cool to do. Obviously, there needs to be that need that you've well articulated. Tell me a bit more about, I guess, the role that technology plays through your eyes of trying to solve some of those problems and deliver more efficient care.
Yeah, so I think, the joy of being part of Chiptech is that we get to design these products from scratch and roll them out through trusted partners and service providers. So we have a real connection through that whole process. Technology needs to be designed so that it's really intuitive for the end user to use, and it can consistently provide and deliver while it's in someone's home. And from my point of view, I think it needs to be adaptable. So we, create a system that has a base, and then we have a lot of things that you can add into that depending on the person's needs at given points in time. And I think that's really an important part to it, is that you can put in all of these different pieces, but having that connectivity through one system and a bit of an ecosystem of care means that you've got a lot more collaboration between those things. It makes it easier for the service providers or the monitoring centres who are actually responding to that to get comprehensive information from multiple sources and make really good decisions on what that could mean for the individual, and follow-up care plans that need to change for them. So I think, while there's hundreds of thousands of different devices out there, there's really a need to make sure that they actually work interoperably and are able to really deliver on some of those needs of the end users, and not just be a flashy little device that may work for a month but then doesn't get charged, gets put in a drawer somewhere, and actually is too hard for the end user to manage. So.
Yeah, totally. Look, I absolutely hear you on that need for adaptability, and we're spoilt for choices in terms of the technology available these days, and that will only exponentially grow as well. And kind of cool that you've got that ability to build these things from scratch. And we see this need for personalized, customized solutions that would suit a particular individual. But I guess it's also important that as you're building out solutions, not just for customers in New Zealand, but Australia and the UK as well, you kind of need that replicability or the scalability as well to play a part too. Tell me about how you can lean into the scalability side of things with technology.
Yeah, absolutely. So from our point of view, we've been looking at solutions in terms of packages that resolve particular needs. So, we look at things like a falls package, and you can start off with the base system and then add a lot of additions into that. So you could be adding in fall detectors for people. You could be adding in bed sensors that detect when they get up at night and don't return to bed, so they could have had a fall during that time. We're looking at adding in monitored medication devices so that you can actually ensure that they're taking their medication at the right time and the right amount, so that they're less prone to falling. So depending on the end user, there's a number of things that can be added into a package for them. And each of those products we can, manufacture at scale and provide solutions for. But it really is down to what that end user needs and making sure you get that right for them at that point in time. And that changes over time too. So it's good to, keep in mind that something that worked last year might not work next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Lastly, what's on the radar for you? What are you watching with interest in this emerging new space? And as Chiptech continues to grow, what can we look forward to seeing?
So I think, more of the same, more solutions that deliver on end user needs in terms of keeping them connected in the community, keeping them safe. A little bit more on the preventative and predictive front. We're really excited about what's happening around big data and AI and what we can learn from people's patterns of behavior and look at predicting that they may need some extra support coming up. So really keen on seeing that stuff start to come through. Love technology in general. So really excited about lots of non-obtrusive monitoring solutions that are available out there as well. There's a lot of things coming up in this space, I think, that are going to be game changers for people, and, will make it a lot easier for the people at the coal front who are delivering care to actually do it in a really timely manner, and to support them in the role that they're playing in the community too.
I'm Will Hewitt. I'm the CEO and founder at HeartLab. So I started HeartLab 7 years ago, really because I was super passionate about, I was really interested in technology and electronics and programming. And when I got to university, I really wanted to figure out a way to do that in medicine and healthcare. And I started working at the Auckland Bioengineering Institute. And I was actively seeking cool and interesting problems to work on. And that's sort of when we first stumbled across the pain that cardiologists and clinicians go through when it comes to analyzing and reporting on these scans of the heart called an echocardiogram, it's a bread and butter scan for any sort of known or suspected heart disease. It's an ultrasound of your heart. It's non-invasive. It's relatively low cost. There's no radiation penalty. So we do a lot of these scans right across Australia and New Zealand. It's a high volume procedure. And what we sort of found the problem was, there's a couple different problems. First off, we started out wanting to build this awesome analysis technology. How can we give clinicians more insights into these scans? What new and interesting features can we extract from this to help them learn more about that data? And we built some of that stuff, and it was really interesting. But what we found was, we'd show people, they say that's awesome, but hey, my main problem is when a scan gets done, 3 hours out of Sydney, I can't even read it. I can't even open it. And so they had, we described a plumbing problem, like a workflow problem, that, the big problem facing clinicians at the time was just accessing these scans remotely. Accessing them remotely quickly, not just it can load and it'll take 10 minutes. How can I load it really quickly? How can I do this analysis on my laptop? A lot of the times, a very common thing to do an echocardiogram is take measurements and draw and annotate the images. And it'll be 100 measurements on a single echocardiogram. And I've got to sit at a very specific computer in the hospital, in the clinic, to be able to do those measurements. So that was sort of one of the innovations we added was, hey, you can view these images remotely. You can do all of the analysis, from the most basic to the most advanced stuff on any device from anywhere. So we've been doing that for around 7 years now. It's been a really exciting journey, I'd say, particularly in the past 12 months. We've started bringing on larger and larger clinics that are using our software and hospitals that are using our software. And I think one of the cool things about health tech is it just it becomes more rewarding the further along you get. You have the ability to actually see, oh wow, like the work we're doing is impacting now thousands and millions of patients around the world. So
Yeah.
that's a bit of our story.
Interesting. I'd love to learn about that a bit more, because all makes sense to me, and being able to access, ECGs or more complex diagnostic imaging on any device. But I guess if it was super easy to do, then it would already be available, and you wouldn't need to be spending 7 years in growing the business
Sure.
in doing it. From my very novice experience, there's complexity around file sizes, integrations, and just the ability to do more. You're not just, I think, not just looking at an image, you're doing more with it.
Yep.
How do you unpack all those complexities and overcome them when others kind of fall a bit short?
Yeah, totally. I think, one thing we've been really big on is you're 100% correct. All of the building blocks to do what we do kind of already exist, right? Like there are tools that let you open an image of the heart. Absolutely. Right. And, there are sort of pre-made ones of those that I could slap my interface on top and it'll work. And I think one of the things that we maybe took a bit of a different approach with was, we really care about speed, and we're going to build this from the ground up. There are very few external tools we've relied on along the way, and we've, for the most part, built in-house from scratch a lot of the stuff we do. And we've done that with the idea that we want to make this as absolutely quick as possible. So, if you ask a HeartLab customer, why do you like HeartLab? I'd be pretty certain that the top reason for most of them is going to be speed. And that really just is our commitment from day one to building a product that's going to be the fastest product out there. And ultimately, that's what really matters. Like these people they're tracking each click. Like how many clicks does it take me to get through my scans, right? Because if I open my screen and I've got 20 scans to report, every click does matter.
Yeah. And is the customer or the individuals you engage with for support and everything, or I guess the end person who pays for it, are those the clinicians directly? Because there's some approaches of working with devices, and it kind of is the technology that integrates in. What's your approach to it?
Yeah. So our customers are hospitals or cardiology practices, and typically they'll adopt that across the whole clinic. So we set the second the scan gets done on the machine, that'll automatically go straight up to HeartLab. And typically the sonographer, the person doing the scan, they'll jump into HeartLab, do a preliminary report. That preliminary report will go off to the cardiologist, and they'll do sort of the final review, sign it off, and distribute it to, back to the relevant people. So yeah, I guess the crux of your question, our main customer is generally a group of cardiologists, like a private practice or a hospital.
Yeah, super cool. And the mostly in New Zealand, or where's the customer base?
Our customer base is across Australia, New Zealand, the United States, and Canada. Cool. So the majority of our business is still in Australia and New Zealand. The US is an emerging market for us, but we've got a strong and growing presence over there.
And do you find much differences or complexities in across different regions? Because some people look at from outside of Australia and New Zealand, look at Australia as a good landing place to test technology, but then when they try and replicate it out into other parts of the world, there's complexities. How do you find the differences across, say, different parts of the world?
Yeah, I mean, for starters, you're absolutely right. Like, particularly coming from New Zealand, Australia is relatively homely, you might say. And, particularly from an outside-in view, Australia and New Zealand, to a similar extent, they're modern, westernized, relatively wealthy countries with westernized healthcare systems. So it's a great place to try new technology before you try it in more valuable healthcare markets like the United States. Look, there's a mountain of differences I could go through between selling in the US versus selling in Australia and New Zealand. I think one thing we've learned in the US, for example, is the value of just being there in person and getting some of the local customs and cultures and really getting to know those people and building a relationship with them along the way. I think that's something else that HeartLab customers really value that we've done is, really made an effort to understand their practice and understand the challenges they have in their practice, and ultimately gets reflected when we build a product that better serves those. So, if I had to pick one thing, I'd just say that the value of being in person and getting to know those people, particularly in the States.
Yeah, 100%. That would be my number one tip for anyone going into any region, for that matter, is if the expectation is to solely do it from afar, or perhaps visit once, or even going, like, there's validity of having a distributor or something for
Yeah.
some particular products, but if you're really looking to build those relationships, having
Yeah,
the skin in
yeah,
the game and local presence is important.
yeah. I think from my perspective, like, you know, as particularly with distributors, for example, you need to activate a market before the distributor's going to do the work for you.
Yeah.
Distributors are definitely not a free ticket to ride.
100%. And in this space of providing fast access to images for a clinician to diagnose an image, I could hazard a guess as to where innovation is for you and what you've got your eye on. But I'd love to hear from you. What are you looking at in terms of the progression of the product and what's next?
Yeah, totally. I think one would be, I think that core like innovation in terms of faster images to the user's browser and all that, that's just something we always have our eye on. Like, how do we make sure we're always the quickest for that? I think the more interesting, the more, touchy-feely stuff that goes on, with our analysis technology, we're really interested in, okay, some of this analysis that you could typically only do when you've got a big workstation computer in the hospital. How can we make that available to them within HeartLab's really nice, fast remote environment? So that to me is probably the next level of innovation for us, is this advanced technology that was typically only available when you were at the hospital on site with a powerful computer. How can we let them do that from any device, from anywhere, sort of like we did just with the basics of opening it to begin with?
So hi, I'm Greg O'Grady. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Alimetry. My background is in clinical surgery. So I'm a surgeon, gastrointestinal surgeon, came out of a PhD with the Biomedical Engineering Institute, got interested in medical devices. And so we formed Alimetry about 6 years ago. We got out of the university, a whole lot of technology we had, really world-leading work on understanding how the gut works. And we took out the people and the technology and spun out the company. And we've been building a product in order to non-invasively map what the gut function is doing without patients needing to have tubes and various things put inside them like we like to do in gastroenterology, avoiding that, doing a non-invasive diagnosis to get to the bottom of what's causing their symptoms.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's amazing. Keen to learn more about that, because in my very novice expertise around gut health, super interesting at the moment, and feels like raising in interest and awareness. But as you say, when I think about diagnostics in the gastroenterology side, I think everything invasive. And otherwise, it's a bit like, let's hazard a guess and a lot of trial and error. So tell me more about this technology to help kind of bridge that gap.
Yeah, well, the gut's a pretty hard organ to get to, kind of hidden inside there. It's hard to access, and there's not a lot of devices out there. Like, we're pretty well covered for things like the heart, or measuring respiratory, sleep, brain, various other things. But the gut's been a hard one to get at the function of what it's actually doing from meal to meal or day to day. And so it's been a real gap. But about 10-20% of the population carry around some chronic gut symptoms. So it is really topical. A lot of people are talking about it, trying to get to the bottom of what's causing their symptoms, diets, is it infections, is it stress and other things that seem to impact gut health. So we've got a really unique way of doing it. Just like the heart generates electricity and that causes it to pump, so does the gut. And that body's natural electricity that makes it move, we're able to pick that up non-invasively from the body surface, just like you'd pick up an ECG or an EEG for the brain. We can pick up that from the gut. But the signals are really weak. They're about 100 times weaker than the heart, and they're super noisy. So to extract those signals, we've developed some high resolution ways to do it with lots of electrodes and some really clever signal processing and now AI in order to kick out that noise. And so it's that combination of things that allows us to get the job done.
Very cool. I'm always interested in the journey for technology companies that have, for want of a better term, spun out of research or university, or it was originally potentially just incubated within a certain thing and now kind of standalone. Tell me about that journey a little bit more, about being a standalone organization.
Yeah, so a lot of great science and deep technology is done in universities, but in order to make it see the light of day and impact the world, it needs that tech transfer process, and it's really challenging taking that technology out from an academic environment where the focus is on can we do it, really minimal prototypes, often deep research and science. So a product is a pretty difficult thing to do. But because we really were leading the world in this area of diagnosing these disorders with electrophysiology, we had a lot of knowledge and we had an awesome team. And we brought that out, supported by the university, all the patents and the technology out of the university. And then they helped us to get some funding. And then with that funding, we could really employ some really experienced people from industry to come in and help the company really build its product roots and then take that product through the FDA, through TGA and others in order to get it out into the market. So it was a really good blend of having that scientists and the tech coming out of the university, but then really bringing in experienced industry people and melding them together to create really what enabled the product to reach the market.
Very cool. And I'm a bit familiar with that process in Australia. What's it like, that whole tech transfer process from New Zealand?
Yeah, it's a pretty big learning curve. If you haven't done it before, this is the second time I've done it. And so I was able to make less mistakes. And we've got a really supportive university here in Auckland who've done a lot of times as well. And they were very enabling, both in being supportive of the journey, but also bringing in investors, really early investors into the table. And they were able to get us well capitalized so we could hit the ground running. And and so the investors really believed in us. We were able to spend fast and move fast like you need to. And yeah, it was a good relationship. So yeah, it's huge difference, right? I mean, doing research, especially in the fields of engineering and the university, no one can really use your product unless you're translating it. So it's really satisfying to see these inventions actually in the clinic impacting lives and making a difference, which is what it's all about as a clinician.
Yeah, 100%. And geographically, those people whose lives have been impacted by the technology, is it just in New Zealand or across the world?
Yeah, so we're in 4 markets now: New Zealand, Australia. It's just got in Australia, but we're really focused on the US and also the UK. And we've got FDA clearance, we've got UKCA, and we're in about 50 hospitals now or clinics doing research, and increasingly a number of them are using it every day in their clinical practice. And we're really focused on the US and the UK in particular for that at the moment, and starting to see some real green shoots of the product taking off in clinical practice and making a difference.
And what are the main, I guess, technology levers? Or there's one might think really leaning into AI diagnostics or the precision medicine side, or the deep technology piece is the whole other the basket too. Walk me through a little bit more of the technology side.
Yeah, great question. So we're really at that confluence of emerging technologies. So we do wearables, and that's the non-invasive side, and we've been able to make it completely cable-free and have the patient, able to move if they want to during the test. We do digital health, so we've got apps that allow patients to enter a really robust symptom profile, and so we can collect all that data and timestamp it against the physiology, so we get really clear symptoms matched to the physiology. But as well as that, now we've brought in mental health profiling. So we get a really good mental health profile in the patients, because a lot of these gut symptoms are influenced or related to things like depression, anxiety, and stress. So we're able to measure that as well. And then we use the cloud to take all that data, and we run our algorithms in the cloud and send back reports. And on top of that, we now also do AI. So we're able to use that for noise cancellation, for example, in order to really provide robust, accurate data back. So it really is a confluence of modern technologies that makes it exciting. We can bank all the data, we can do learning on it to improve, and like the neural networks we've done based on the banks of data coming through the cloud, through the digital era. That's what it enables. And so we've got a unique data platform, a unique moat with that data, and hopefully we'll be able to do more and more as that data unlocks new things we can do for patients based on all the data we've collected to date.
Yeah, and from I could be wrong here, correct me if I'm wrong, but at least from a consumer perspective, the world of gut health has probably got more attention over the past couple of years in terms of its importance and its impact. And as you pointed out, the interconnected nature, or I guess it ties to comorbidities as well of mental health and other bits. Like everything seems to come back to gut health. So is this an area that's increasing awareness and interest within the clinical community as well?
Yeah, hugely. Yeah, The microbiome's to me led a lot of interest as well. It's almost seen as a little puppet master in there, pulling the strings about what you eat and how you feel on any given day. Which isn't, quite true, but it certainly has an influence. And so the gut is a really noisy organ. It's always talking to your brain. If you're hungry or you're nauseated, it's very hard to distract from these kind of things, right? Whereas a lot of other organs aren't so noisy. And so it really occupies a lot of our mental space, the gut. So it's a cool organ system to get into. But on the consumer side, for example, it's very, very hard to get data on because it's also quite a difficult organ to get hold of. So yeah, it's certainly growing. It's growing in the clinical sense. The mental health unlock about understanding the role that has been really important. And so yeah, it's timely to kind of bring these sort of technologies to the world. And who knows, maybe one day there'll be a consumer version of what we do as well.
Well, look, I find it fascinating. We could have a whole deep dive into that whole world of, surely there's a lot of power in having measurable outcomes or diagnostics, something above and beyond, a clinician listening to a patient who's trying to describe the best they can how they feel. And from my own personal experience about gut health generally, so much is from a patient or consumer side is it impacts how you feel, but that's such a fluffy subjective term, and everyone has different things. So yeah, I'm reflective on that a fair bit. So having a tool to be able to help people who really need it is super empowering. Where's this going in terms of new innovations or technologies, or what's kind of on your roadmap or got your eye on over the next 6, 12, 24 that we can watch with interest?
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it for us, really. The value prop is going from those subjective guesswork, trial and error, to something objective, data-based, and then you can deliver an actionable biomarker, we call it, which is for the clinician, okay, like that's the thing you want, that's the real product. It's what you want in order to go and, help the patient with a clearer treatment pathway. And so that's definitely what we're building. So us, it's about nailing down those objective biomarkers that we can deliver. And the app does that to a certain degree as well. You can take these kind of subjective things that are difficult to explain for a patient, put the app in front of them with a meal, and all of a sudden you get a really granular data-based profile of what the symptoms are actually doing. And some clinicians find that just as useful as the physiology, because that kind of symptom map that goes from subjective conversation that might take 15 minutes to really work it out, you get a really objective, repeatable map. So for us, it's about keeping to do that, and that's what we do well. And we're really looking at how we grow this. We've got to get out there and make an impact and take this product to the world. But also there's adjacent groups, like children is a really interesting one for us at the moment, because a lot of these children have symptoms. They're missing school, feeling miserable, but parents don't want to give radiation. They don't want their children to have an anesthetic. And if we can get away with a non-invasive test, that's a really appealing thing. And then there's another really big organ, which is the colon, sitting there causing a lot of symptoms as well. And we know now that we can do the same technology on the lower gut. And so that's something we're very interested in building out as well. So yeah, lots of things we can do with the platform. It's a pretty exciting time for the company to be in the market, and also with the opportunity to build these future products coming through.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Talking HealthTech. Make sure you like and subscribe, and share this episode with someone who might find it valuable. For more information and resources about healthcare innovation, visit talkinghealthtech.com.